Hello and welcome back to a brand new Player 2 review discussion. My name is Paul James, and today I have the great pleasure to be joined by Radio Watson's Buddy Watson. How are you, mate?
Good man, how are you?
Yeah, pretty awesome. I was unsure as to whether, the voice of Radio Watson, do I go, like, because then, there's the old face of radio sort of stuff. That's a bit derogatory, and everyone can see if they're watching this video version, good-looking rooster, so clearly it's not just not the old face for radio comment there, but it's good to have you on, mate.
It's good to be here, and obviously speaking about one of my most anticipated titles of such a long time, and it's been a long ongoing kind of joke since PAX
Yeah.
2018,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah, we've been
So,
talking about this one for a long, long time. So it's good that it's kind of finally here. We were very fortunate to get early access to Camped Out, which some people might once know as Scouts Honor. It went by the name at one point, and there was a name change. But yeah, it's, I guess, if we really simplify it for people before we dive into the minutiae of the game, if we really simplify it in that kind of top level sort of pitch for people, I guess imagine going camping with that overcooked style experience at its core. That kind of paints the picture for people, but we'll start diving into the weeds of the whole thing, and I'll kick things over to you first, buddy. What do you think of it? We've been waiting for this thing for a while. What do you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. I love these type of games, overcooked, moving out, even to a kind of a lesser degree, Death Squared, all this kind of
Yep.
like couch co-op, working together, kind of creating chaotic situations via communication, and
Yeah, collaborative
kind of
chaos.
trying to get you kind of beat your own high scores or get your leaderboards or whatever it is, getting your 3 stars or 3/10 in this case. So I love these type of games. I'm quite competitive by nature, and the idea of
Never
kind
seen
of
that
like
before.
the idea of kind of replaying levels in particular games and trying to perfect runs. I think that appeals to a certain kind of mindset. I think of like people that play Destiny and do raids and want 100% and get the best loot and stuff. I think it's the same kind of frame of mind here, like getting the best run, getting the best score, making sure you perfect it. So I had an awesome time with Camped Out. Yeah, I loved it. So
Comes to us good friends at INCA Studios. There, Melbourne-based team. They've been working, as you said, they've been working on the game for years, and yeah, you and I kind of latched onto it pretty early on in the piece, and have been hotly anticipating this one for a long time. And you have to imagine maybe COVID slowed a few things down for them there, but the game is coming to PC and Switch, and I guess again, being that kind of overcooked style of experience, you've had more opportunity than I in terms of playing it kind of couch co-op. And the game does, like, if you're playing on PC, the game does facilitate online play, but it's kind of through the Steam remote play. There's loopholes on the Steam side that you can kind of take advantage of to make it work. So it's not clean and easy, but the game is really geared around the couch co-op experience. And how did you find that side of things? You spent more time with it. You've, I think, blown through the entire game in co-op.
I've done the entire game, all 20 levels, completed the 3/10 on each level as well. So 100% it, completed it, fantastic. I also did the first 7 or 8 levels on my own, to kind of see how that was. So I just opened up and did that in the game, and then kind of my friend came over, and then we kind of steamed through it. And by steamed through it, I don't mean like we plowed through it. I think my overall game time was about an hour and 15, just doing it on my own for the 7 or 8 levels, just like to
Yep.
test out. And then my overall game time now is at like 6 hours, so maybe 5 hours in total to get through the 20 levels and kind of get the 3/10, depending on like your skill level and whether you're
Yeah.
playing with 2 players, 3 players, 4 players. So for me, there was definitely some really frustrating levels. I think I had to go back and do 6 or 7 levels to get the extra chance, and there was just
Yep.
1 or 2 levels where we just kind of got really bogged down and became quite frustrated at. But when we finally overcome that was a pretty good celebration. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
What were some of the points of frustration for you? Because I found without like, and the game is fantastic. I've had a great time with it, just like you have. And but there are some, I guess, smaller things that have kind of impeded progress a little bit. They've impeded the enjoyment somewhat. I must say, I would get frustrated by, and I guess to kind of outline the loop for people, you enter a level, regardless of whether you're solo or with a group, and you've got your bags to unpack basically first. That gets you your pickaxe. It gets you your axe itself. It gives you all the things you need to be able to set up camp, the pot, all of those sort of things that you actually require to establish yourself and basically survive the night. But the collision on them is kind of frustrating. Like they all just get in each other's way, and you're trying to wade through them, and it doesn't allow you to do it easily. It really slows you right down. You almost feel tempted to like pick up something else and then run off to the side and drop it or throw it away. But then that makes your life harder for when you need that item later because you got to go chase it down from wherever you tossed. Like it's the little, and I guess there's other smaller things like that I found would be a little bit frustrating in that sense. And you had a particular suggestion when we were chatting about this the night before about how something like that could be alleviated in terms of like the sequence that they give you the different items. But I guess like the game kind of suffers from a few minor things along the lines of what I've just discussed there. Would that be fair?
Definitely, but the thing they do really well is when it kind of so basically if you think overcooked, and I'm going to say overcooked a lot, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory or negative aspect, but it's the most easiest thing that you can kind of compare this to that something kind of someone has a point of reference. So you start the adventure mode, you have an overworld, and kind of you're just walking around. First of all, you do the tutorial. Opens up a couple more levels, and you get a certain amount of kind of tents is what they call it, which is their equivalent of stars. So you can get up to 3 per level, depending on whether you hit a certain time metric by finishing the level 30 minutes before midnight in their in-game clock. Each level is like 3 minutes, so if you can complete a level in 2 minutes 30, then that's when you get that 3rd star, and of course all the other goals. And opening a certain amount of like tents in each kind of portion will open up other portions of the overworld. So that's kind of the idea of the game. But one thing they do to kind of alleviate that I found really helpful when I was doing it on my own was they're having the 2 difficulty modes with the normal and then the casual as well. So that was quite helpful. Of course, I was playing on the normal mode, and some of my frustrations I probably could have alleviated a little bit and then dropped it down to casual, and I had to do that later on because playing on my own was a little bit harder in some of the other levels, which obviously were geared or designed with teamwork in mind, but you were still able to get those 3 tenths and get that maximum score moving on. It would just say casual, and I didn't like that because I wanted the little timer there, and once again, that competitive nature of myself. But
that's right, you just get your mates around to try and sort that one out and clean up that.
Well, that's right. We eventually did that when my friend came over and kind of plowed through the game. But one of those things, I guess, having those items kind of cluster around when you first open up your little bag because it's in a set position. Basically, you just tap A. Really easy control scheme. On the Switch, you've got A, which is kind of pick up items, and then B, which is drop items, and then your top 2 L and R are like dash and then throw. So throw becomes real crucial later on in some of the levels when you're kind of working together and kind of split up on 2 different sides of the level having to work together. But opening all the bags and having all the items come out in one hit got to a certain point where they're all, like you were saying, they're all kind of jumped in on each other, and
they get in each other's way.
Sometimes it highlights when you're on the you're kind of on the item that you're looking at, but sometimes it's just too small or you just don't pick up the item that you want. So that was probably like one of my probably the main criticism, and I feel like you could have fixed that in a few ways of either like maybe not having the camera too far back, having that a bit more zoomed in, or having the characters be a little bit bigger, or the items going to be bigger. But then I guess you might come into kind of other challenges where actually setting those items up can be difficult because there's too much items in the way. So I guess it's a tough balance there, but that was probably the one kind of frustration that I had, that maybe they could find other ways to alleviate. We had certain situations where we were opening our bags, obviously because there's 2 players, you have to set up 2 different tents. Same way it would be 3 and 4, but they're already set up when you're only playing the 2 players. But we were like, all right, we're just going to open all of the contents of my bag, and in your bag you have the pick and the axe, and we'll just grab those items out, and then we'll leave your tent and everything in there, and then we'll just work on my one, and then we'll like dash back to the bag, and then we'll kind of open that tent once there's not as much crap on the floor, and that would mean we can set up that first tent or that first pot in a good position because there wasn't shit on all the other all the other items on the floor. So we kind of like had a little strategies to kind of get around that, and I'm almost wondering, is that like a kind of a part of the chaos in the game, having so much stuff on the ground? Like, there's a frustration of not being able to identify and pick up the item that you want every single time. That's definitely a little bit of like feedback, small minor gripe. Definitely that, but is part of that chaos kind of with it or not? So I'm not sure.
I think the chaos, having everything kind of scattered all over the place, is fine. And I mean, there's a urgency to all of these sorts of games. Like there is going to be shit flying everywhere. That is kind of part of the course in all of these types of games. So that part doesn't bother me. But yeah, the ability to actually then pick up what you need, that's the little bit too clean and unsloppy for me. And I think that's what then makes what is already designed to be chaotic then a little more untenable. And that was kind of the big obstacle there. And my co-op partner was my wife, who's not as big on these styles of games. So that particular component really grated her very, very quickly. And it was me kind of, no, come on, I need you to stick around. We gotta play through this. Come on, let's go. So like there was that sort of obstacle that came with it. But yeah, you can kind of see what they're going for. I think it's just that tiny little bit of execution on the end there that's kind of lacking, and that could also be very quickly and easily kind of patched up or fixed up, that might make things a lot easier for like a much easier pill for people to swallow going forward. I guess you touched on the solo and how far you press, and maybe this is even reflective of the skill gap between you and I, because you've got a lot more experience with a lot of these different sorts of similar sorts of games. You said it was what, level 7 or 8 or thereabouts that you did on your own before. Kind of, did you feel the need to have someone else, or is that just when you had your someone else?
No, there was definitely a need for something else. I think there's a level in level 8 where you kind of use an elevator system. You go up an elevator, go across, you go up an elevator, and only the woods upstairs. And you have to do with the chopping and then kind of throw it down. So I felt like that was a lot harder. But I was playing on the normal difficulty. If I just dropped it to casual, it would have halved the amount of resources that I needed to set up the tent. So instead of needing 3 wood and then 2 stone, I would have only needed 1, and it would have made it much quicker. I would have been able to accomplish that. So that's kind of my own kind of ego. Squirrels. Yeah, and there's no squirrels in that level either. So it's the squirrels, if you cut resources, they kind of you got squirrels. Some levels it's a snake or a bear or something like that. Well, the bear will kind of attack you, but the
stuff,
yeah, it was this really squirrels and the snakes that would come along. Say if you for the whole entire run, we need for 2 of us we needed 10 wood, right? We needed 3, and then 4 for the thing. We could just go, one of us could just go over, cut 10 wood and just let it sit there and hoard it, and then we could do that. Those are kind of those animals come in and kind of take it away to stop you from breaking the game and kind of oversimplifying it. So they definitely have their place in it, and they're not in every level. So that was quite good.
I think it's when you're playing solo and you've some of the very earliest levels. It might have even been like the second one, third one. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. There's like a river that runs straight down the middle, and you have to kind of pass across the top and the bottom. It's like you go and hack away at the wood, and then you throw it across for yourself to collect.
Squirrel comes, takes it.
Great. Squirrel comes in and steals it as you're making your way across. You've just overcommitted, so then you've got to cut the full lap around again. Like, what can I possibly do? Like, it's so. I think. Yeah, that'd probably be the other half, is kind of the balancing on the solo side that potentially still needs a little bit more work there. The game is, of course, designed with co-op at the focus, and there's no doubting that. And it is kind of a little disclaimer there on that entire point, is that let's keep in mind that it is designed for co-op and less so for solo. But it does support solo, at which point there's that degree of balancing that potentially needs to be adjusted a little bit further. I don't know about you. I love hearing the music from this game.
Yeah, the music's really cool.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's simple, and it's probably not has X amount of tracks across the game.
Yeah, it's pretty limited.
Just
they're really
I feel like
well done.
Yeah, I feel like music with these type of games, it needs to kind of either amp up a situation where which is cool when you kind of get down to 30 seconds to go. It does amp up kind of get a little bit more stressful, and at least you've got like an audio cue of like, oh my god, we're not going to make the rest of the level. But everything else, I feel like, is kind of chilled out, quite calm, and quaint, and kind of.
I kind of had in mind.
Yeah, and with games like these, you really need to kind of like you almost wanting as a player and as a game designer, you're wanting to get a player into a state of flow where they kind of get into that kind of just almost autonomous activity, and the kind of that kind of music or the soundtrack that they have in this kind of like facilitates that as well. So
yeah, there is a momentum that they're trying to get you to build, and the music helps facilitate that a lot. Visually, the game is I guess again, if people are kind of comfortable with that overcooked sort of look and feel, then you're going to feel quite at home with this. It does kind of try and I think, leverage that same sort of aesthetic. Not one to one. I think there's a kind of different sort of. It's perhaps even a little more cartoony in the case of this than what Overcooked's going for, but it's certainly a very endearing style that they've got going.
Yeah, 100%. And the level varieties were quite good as well. So even though early on I felt kind of, maybe there's too much of the national park. Later on, they kind of freed that up. There's a few desert levels,
Yeah, they do
a
change
few
it up.
ice levels as well, and towards the end, there's some cool locations that I won't just spoil. So
Yeah, we'll hold those for people. We were obviously chatting, yesterday prior to this, and there was a little list of things that you kind of had in mind when it comes to the game there, in terms of kind of little points of feedback and opportunities within the game. Were there any that we've not touched on so far that you wanted to shout out?
possibly they're super kind of minute, like
Nitpicky, but that's fine.
once again in the overworld, like maybe being able to use the dash button there to get to levels quicker after you've accomplished them.
It
Later
can
on,
be a
you
bit of
do
a
get
trudge, right?
a raft when you kind of get to make shortcuts, or whether you could have like a character, oh sorry, not a character select screen, but like a level select screen, maybe if you just wanted to
Yep.
shoot through that. But once again, the game is kind of reliant on that kind of adventure based overworld type feel. I've already said, like, maybe the camera and or the items, kind of whether one of those can be pushed forward, or the items can be made a bit bigger, or maybe just like the grab button, maybe you could kind of, there's a better way to specify what you are grabbing, because some of the items were clustered together too much. So maybe just that. Um, Outside of that, maybe, and this is like super nitpicky, like using the dash button. When you would dash, you would have a moment of, like, after the dash completes, you're at a normal speed. It's like a microsecond, and then you waits for you to dash again. I would like to just like hit dash.
Hold it and just
No,
stick with it.
not hold it, but hit dash ends, hit dash again, instead of like knowing what that microsecond is, I can hit it again.
Oh
But
yeah, I'm with you.
that's once again, that's just like super like nitpicky
I guess at that
based on
point,
other games, and,
maybe.
and like speeding stuff up. But
Yeah, I know. I think for me, it's more okay. Just give me the ability to hold this thing down and just keep sprinting. If the moment that I'm not sprinting is so minute, then just let me keep going. That would be my argument, but I can totally see your perspective on the whole thing as well and how that would kind of work. Um, I must say, like, yeah, and I guess as we start to wind things down, I am really happy with what the final product has become. We've been watching this game from afar for a long time. We've been chatting with Ian. We've been chatting with like everyone kind of involved. You know, when
Andrew,
you check
yeah,
out the credits, like obviously what Ian and Andrew have done has been fantastic, but they've had a few other little people involved along the way as well. And it's been really cool to kind of see this one develop over the years. And I'm stoked that it's finally here. Are there any other thoughts at all?
um, not really. I kind of
What about the absence of online? Do you feel like that
No,
doesn't
it's
phase you
tough.
too
Like,
much
you
at
got to
all?
think about, like, two people made these games, right? Made
Yeah,
this game. So, even the first Overcooked, which was like had a big publisher behind it, Team 17, that didn't
didn't have
have
online
online,
either. Yeah,
right? You think about all the other games are kind of talking about moving out. Death Squared, from the another awesome Australian studio that's kind of in that space with
yeah, SMG. Yeah,
SMG. They don't have online, right? Only Moving Out 2 is having online. So there's certain limitations, and possibly just getting that game out and having that vision first. Like, it's hard to really dock points for that. And I
no, I'd
feel
agree.
like the Switch, well, less so Steam, but the Switch is kind of the perfect kind of system to allow that. And one of the things I wanted to touch on kind of before we jumped out of it, was like, whereas Overcooked has this, they can throw things at you, whether they're changing things on the menu, right? That's how they do it. And they also have environmental stuff. With this, you're doing the same tasks each time. All right, you got to set up the tent, get the same amount of resources in a row to make
Yeah,
sure the tent's complete. Same with the pot, do the same activities, right? So there's no kind of like menu change across the 20 levels, which can be like viewed as like a lack of diversity and tasks and switching up. But I really feel like it might actually be one of their strengths in how they use the environment
yeah. The
in
environment's
each
what drives
level,
it.
and how to kind of like challenge you with the introduction of, like, traps and switches you've got to step on, and help your other person get through these like closed off parts of the level, and
Let alone the
um,
animals and everything we've discussed already.
the
Yeah.
bears and gigantic creatures that kind of show up later on as well. And
Spoilers.
um, yeah, we'll see about that. So yeah, I feel like that's actually like a strength of theirs, and it kind of encompasses the whole nature of like going camping and maybe being a scout, and these are the tasks that you're always going to have to do. And it really is like when you're a camper or a scout, it is you versus the environment. So when I was initially thinking about that, I was like, is this like a negative? I'm like, no, it's actually a positive, and it like encompasses that spirit that what the
Yeah, it
kind of
represents the real
the, the
experience.
the real experience, and what kind of what that game is like, that setting about. Like it's really the environment that you're up against and survival and stuff. So I actually thought that was quite cool. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on was maybe like because of that, this may be a little bit more accessible, and the that casual difficulty. I think maybe this as like a co-op game and a couch co-op game, as opposed to some of those other games, might be a little bit more accessible
Yeah,
for younger kids as well, and maybe working together with an adult or something. So whereas in Overcooked, it's always about the stars and always about the menu, and maybe it's a little bit complicated having to go, all right, this you got to chop, then you've got to cook this one. That you don't have something super complex here. Well,
it's
this is
really
a little bit more
defined for anyone who plays it. Yeah.
100%, from the start all the way through to the finish. You're doing those same tasks. You know how to do. You can get it, like, well, once again, get into that flow, and maybe that's a little bit more accessible for like younger kids as well. So maybe if you were a bit apprehensive about getting them into those kind of games, this is like a good starting
Jumping
point and
off
a good
point,
like
yeah.
jumping off point and getting into that. So that's maybe one of its strengths, those tasks and the environment being like the switch up, and then obviously kind of being a little bit more accessible. So that's what I want to kind of give a little bit more credit, and whether it was kind of an intentional thing or not, it's kind of like a thought that kind of popped up in my mind. So
No, I mean, I must say, until you've flagged, I hadn't necessarily thought about that way, but it is like, and when people go camping, that regardless of the scale of the whole thing, there is this sequence of things that you've got to go through to get yourself set up so that you can then go off and do whatever it is you might want to do. Now, in the case of the game, it's so you can sleep safely at the end of the night. But like people, like it is a routine. It is a sequence of events that is typically followed that allows you to get from arrival to ready to go for the night, and that doesn't matter where you go or what the experience is. That's what you do. So it's really representative of that. And you're right. Then the by extension component for what it means for a less experienced audience is huge. Like this is actually a really good opportunity for anyone who's not being comfortable with these sort of games or is new to these sorts of games. This is potentially the way in. It's a really great way to look at it, man. And thanks for sharing that one.
all right, man.
So, buddy, you do some awesome stuff online. We touched on Radio Watson before. Where should people go to check out all of your work?
I'm over on Twitter at Buddy Watson. I'm doing a lot of streaming on Twitch now, also just under my name, Buddy Watson. And every now and then I do a podcast, which is kind of been on the back burner, thanks to the streaming stuff. But that's just Radio
Because you're a
Watson.
gun at it.
It's all good podcasts. Oh, thank you. Thank you so kindly. But yeah,
I'll apologise. I'm really commenting, but every now and then just kind of stalking and watching, see what's going on while I'm, I don't know, rocking a baby back to sleep or whatever the case happens to be. So
much appreciated.
the content is good. People, please make sure to go and check out Buddy's streams, and whenever Radio Watson comes out of its hiatus, make sure to tune in there as well.
Very soon.
Because he's got plans. Good, we can get excited for that. Thank you, of course, to Ian and Andrew for providing or helping us to get our hands on some codes. The game is camped out. It is available this week on the Switch and PC, so please, if you're keen, you've been planning. Now that explains why you were waving it around beforehand. You've been planning on this since the very beginning. Please make sure to go and pick up the game. It is a fantastic time. You'll thoroughly enjoy yourself. You've already shouted out your social media on my side. Paul James Games. The website is player2au. Check out the written review, player2.net.au. And again, thank you to Andrew and Ian for providing us the codes. It's been awesome. Go check it out. I'm sure, guys, maybe let us know in the comments. I'm sure you're probably at PAX. Anyone going to PAX, make sure to go and check out the game there. That's a really good opportunity to try before you buy. Please make sure to buy afterwards.
We'll play together at PAX, Paul. We'll
yes.
hook up. We'll get
you're gonna smash me. Like,
we'll get a foursome going, and we'll get those 3 tents.
Yeah, let's make sure we get some real scrubs alongside us just to make me look a little bit better, because I'll be getting clowned out by you. So if we can get someone there that just makes me look a bit better by comparison, it'd be great. Anyway, we'll wrap things up there. Thank you, buddy, for coming along, mate.
Thanks for having me, man.
And everyone else, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.